Welcome to the Analysis of Winning Lineups podcast on Big Ed League 42. Here talking about some of the big winners over the weekend, and we saw some big money changing hands on a few plays here. So looking over at FanDuel, we're going to look at the top lineup here and break that down for you. It was Brett Rao, 24, 176.12 points, took down the $1 million top prize on FanDuel this weekend. As we know, or as maybe you don't know, that was nearly 80 points lower than the top score for last week. So obviously we saw a couple teams on a bye week. That's going to lower, give you less players that have opportunity for big games. But all in all, just a very low-scoring week. So go ahead and break it down here. We have Phillip Rivers at the top, 26.22 points, 3.5% owned against the Browns. And this one made a lot of sense in your GPPs and someone I wish I'd had a little bit more shares of. But coming into the week, Pro Football Focus had the Browns and the Chargers rated as the two worst defenses in all of football, and Phillip Rivers certainly took advantage of that with 3 touchdown passes and 358 yards in a narrow victory at home against the Browns. Next up was Devonta Freeman. If you were playing last week, if you played anything last week, you know that Devonta Freeman was the dude that absolutely exploded last week. And had a monster game last week, had another monster game this week, 35.4 points, 5 receptions for 81 yards, 68 rushing yards, and 3 more rushing touchdowns, 18 points there, 35.4 overall. Another phenomenal performance by him. Next up was the chalk play of the week, 42.1% owned Carlos Williams, who ended up with 14.5 points. His day was kind of saved by late touchdown catch from Tyrod Taylor, 23-yarder there. Didn't have much success on the ground, but at his ownership, really, it wasn't going to kill you in tournaments. It certainly could have. It paid off in this week with that late touchdown for Brett Rao here, won by 1.5 points over second place. But he was a guy who was tremendously high owned in cash games, and as you can see, pretty high owned in GPPs as well. Next up, DeAndre Hopkins. It seems like every single week, this guy is on the winning lineup on FanDuel or DraftKings at least one. I believe this is the third time in 4 weeks he's been on the FanDuel winning lineup. And he was the beneficiary of a lot of garbage time in this one. 9 for 157. Had a touchdown that he caught, but he had stepped out of bounds prior to the catch, so it got called back. But this game was 42-0 before Houston even looked like they came close to scoring. This one was brutal. Hopkins stayed in the game till the end, though, and was getting targeted the entire time. So big-time garbage time performance, and that's what happens when you're the go-to receiver. You get down, and you see a ton of targets. So that one certainly paid off at 12.9%. Next up, Demaryius Thomas, 9.1% owned. This was a guy that I had quite a few shares of. I thought he would have a big game against Minnesota. Minnesota defense played well, picked off Peyton Manning a couple times, and Demaryius was fine, 9 for 93. Not a huge performance, but there weren't very many receivers that had big performances this week. We had Antonio Brown played on Thursday. He didn't do too well either. Julio Jones, as everyone knows, everyone's favorite top play, got shut down this week. And Atlanta scored 48 points, so that was certainly, you take out one aspect and you still got killed by the others. So ultimately it didn't work out for the Texans, but it worked out for them if they were fading Julio Jones in their tournaments. But either way, this was a nice performance there. Good enough by Demaryius Thomas, 8,500. You're not thrilled with the 13.8 points, but you'll take it because there weren't very many other guys with similar lines. Keenan Allen here, $7,700, another guy who continues to find his way on these $1 million lineups. 10.4% owned, and the other times that he was on the $1 million lineups, we're seeing 15-plus targets and catches, and that wasn't the case this time, but still had a fine performance, 4 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. That's really all you needed at that price tag at 15.2. So a solid performance there by Keenan Allen, just good enough at 10.8%. Martellus Bennett, guy that a lot of us talked about all week long as a safe option with some upside. Once you found out Jay Cutler was playing, this was a guy that I know many of us locked into a ton of tournament lineups, and he certainly paid off. 11 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. And that touchdown, came off play action, wide open touchdown in the corner of the end zone. So very easy for Martellus Bennett there. It was a nice performance for him. Ended up with 19.8 points. And then next up we get to the kicker. It was the week of the kicker. We saw Cairo Santos scored 27 points, more than just about any player. I believe it was Allen Hurns, Devontae Freeman as the only two players that outscored kicker Cairo Santos this week. 7. I mean, that's unprecedented. You're not going to even see that probably again for years, even 7 attempts. But either way, that's not who we saw in this lineup, surprisingly. It was Graham Gano at 3.3%. 3 field goals, 4 extra points. Team scored 37 points. So if you have a kicker from that type of offensive output, generally speaking, you're going to do pretty well. And 13 points from Graham Gano, more than enough to help our big winner here. And then the defense and special teams, it was the Carolina Panthers, and it was the Josh Norman show. Had 2 interceptions, ran one of them back for a touchdown. They ended up with 4 total interceptions, a fumble recovery, 2 sacks, and the aforementioned touchdown. So Josh Norman and the Panthers certainly paid off big time. 18 points. We saw some chalk plays. Arizona, Denver, big time disappointments there, and Carolina was the nice play of the week. Next up, by the way, if you know Brett Rao, I've been looking for him. I'd love to have him on for an interview, ask him about this lineup. So if you know him, or maybe it's a girl with the name Brett, it's a nickname, who knows? Either way, if you know this person, I'd love to have him on for an interview. So find me at BigItaly42 or tweet us at DFCafe if you know them. And certainly love to have them on and chat about this big win here. Next up, a $1.2 million winner, and Chipotle Addict, a pretty highly ranked grinder. Looks like top 25 overall. I'm not sure how many entries, but I see this was entry number 16, so quite a few in this one. And this one, what a turn of events for Chipotle Addict here. We have Calvin Johnson going in for the go-ahead touchdown, which from what I've read and looked into the lineups, looks like he would have dropped to 15th place. Instead, they get a fumble recovery for the defense, even though they didn't actually recover the fumble. It was intentionally batted out of the back of the end zone, which was reported later should have been called a penalty. It wasn't. Either way, counts as a fumble recovery because it is a turnover for the offense. So those points there were difference in a $700,000 difference in the recovery itself, taking away the touchdown, a difference of $1.18 million right there on that play. So can't imagine the kind of emotions going on there with that upside and downside there on that last play. But congratulations to Chipotle Addict. Let's go ahead and break it down. And the key player here, as far as ownership percentage goes, one of two, both Jacksonville Jaguars. Blake Bortles, exactly 1% owned, fell just short of the 300-yard bonus, but at 1% ownership, ended up with 19.02 points. More than enough on a week where, like I said, we did not see a lot of high-scoring quarterbacks, so that was more than adequate there. Next up, we had Matt Forte, 17.5% owned. He ended up with a ton of yardage, 155 yards, but as we've seen many times before with Matt Forte, he gets a ton of yardage and just is unable to punch in the end zone. But either way, obviously scored just enough at 18.5 points to help Chipotle Addict take down this top spot. Devontae Freeman, I mean, there's no way you would have seen this lineup without Devontae Freeman. If you're the only player that scores 3 touchdowns, you know he's going to be on the lineup. If there's 3 to 4 guys like there was last week, you know, you got a combination of them. Maybe you got lucky and got all of them. But Devontae Freeman, only person with 3 touchdowns this week. Certainly a huge performance here. 37.9 points, 149 total yards, and those 3 touchdowns. Amari Cooper, popular play, 33.5, the chalkiest play on this lineup by far. Caught that early touchdown pass from Derek Carr. Looked like he was in line for a big night, and didn't really do much after that at all. But 14.9 points with that touchdown, just enough there as well. Next up, DeAndre Hopkins. You heard the story with him. Got the 100-point bonus, 27.7 points. And then that brings us to our key play here. Allen Hurns, 2.6% owned, 11 catches, 116 yards, a touchdown. Obviously got the 100-yard bonus. And this is a product of the number 2 receiver against the Colts. We've seen this time and time again. We see Vontae Davis on the number 1 guy. This time Allen Robinson. Didn't completely shut him out, but certainly you're not going to see that type of volume for anyone against Vontae Davis. And Allen Hurns stepped up big time, 31.6 points. Really the key in setting this lineup apart. Charles Clay, 23.1 points, 19.6% ownership. Due a lot because to the fact that Sammy Watkins was out and he was very, very cheap. But he pulled in 9 for 111 yards. Obviously got that 100-yard bonus. Had a touchdown called back on what was called a chop block. I I don't know. I personally didn't think it was a chop block. Didn't matter. I didn't have Charles Clay on a $1 million lineup either way, so certainly didn't make that much of a difference to me. But either way, questionable call. Doesn't matter. He obviously scored just enough points to help our man Chipotle Attic here take down the top spot. Demaryius Thomas again. He's the flex spot guy for you, 9 for 93, as mentioned earlier, at 9.8%. And then finally, the Seattle defense, the play of the day, apparently. I mean, they made the one play right when they needed it. The Lions played just well enough to not beat themselves at times. Didn't turn the ball over at all until then. And, yeah, that right there is going to wrap things up for that and for our big winners. So congratulations to Brett Rao 24 and Chipotle Addict. If you have any questions about any of these lineups or anything, find me on Twitter at BigLily42. Also, if you know either of these guys, I'd love to have one of them, both of them even on, maybe at the same time, and interview them. So if you happen to know them, where I can find them, let me know or let us know at DF Cafe. Hopefully you enjoyed this lineup breakdown, and we will see you guys next time.